everybody, we are back for another episode. I had a bit of a brain fart there because we've been talking about all the tinfoil hat things, haven't we?
Look, I've got mine. Have you got yours?
Mine's natural. Pick up some good radio stations and TV stations with this noggin.
Oh, the same as those little antennae you got sitting on the top of your head there.
I kind of look like a Cyberman from Doctor Who, actually.
Or could be Paul Rudd's Ant-Man.
Yeah, completely different franchise, but yeah, no, I'd rather stick with the Cyberman thing. Goes back to my sort of age because I grew up with the Cybermen and stuff. You know, Marvel wasn't really a thing when I was a kid, so there you go.
And you probably tied Doctor Who into time travel and all sorts of goodies.
But look, a lot of the stuff that we're going to be probably talking about tonight, Doctor Who's probably already done an episode on it or something very similar, so
I wouldn't be surprised.
It goes that old. So yeah, we are talking tinfoil hat things tonight, so anything and everything's going to be going on this one, isn't it?
Yeah, these are good ones because it just branches off into so many different areas.
Yeah.
We could sound like we're absolute idiots until it comes back around full circle and it's like, it makes sense.
We probably will sound like idiots by the end of this one, but it is what it is. I mean, realistically, I'm a bit of an idiot anyway, so it's not really giving anything away.
If people haven't gathered this by now, after the last, I don't know how many episodes,
we're at over 60 episodes now. We're doing good.
Jeez, that's more than what I thought.
Yeah, no, we've got over 60 videos up on our YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, click like, and all that other stuff, and you'll be notified whenever we put a new show out. We've got some really good ones coming up this year, and you've already seen the first couple. So yeah,
How do you want to start this one off? Because there's so many.
Well, I don't know.
So many.
Tinfoil hat. It's conspiracies. It's we should really call this Carl's episode because if you jump into our live stream, Carl is our resident conspiracy theorist, and I suppose this one came about because of chatting about our mate Carl.
So like, I don't know. You know a lot more about some of them than what I do. You know.
Because I'm an old fart. That's why.
Well, okay, you say it like that, sure.
Don't deny it, mate. Don't deny it, mate.
But this came up, we're talking about several different places, and then a person's name came up, and it kind of branched from there. And I don't know, this person is fairly well known, I would say.
We're talking about JFK.
No. I was talking about Stephen Greer. He hasn't got a hole in his head yet.
Well, we all have holes in our heads. It's a matter of whether it's a naturally given one or artificially induced.
JFK one, if that helps.
Yeah. Well, I don't know where to go now. You're going down the Steve Greer path, and I was going down the JFK path. But I guess they all have a bit of a type. We'll start with JFK and work our way out from there. Now we all know November 1963 is when he that bad day in Dallas. The Dealey Plaza and everything, but there's no conspiracy about what actually happened. There's a lot of conspiracy about how it happened, why it happened, and the moving parts that made it happen. You know, is it a CIA plot? Is it free-thinking people? In fact, I saw something on TV the other day that were talking about that, and somebody reckons that they've got a lot of proof that, and in fact, Uri Geller, when he was part of the Stargate project, he actually did a read on the JFK assassination, and he said he has worked out exactly what happened. He's gauged it all through his remote viewing and things like that. So much so that Jackie Onassis was put in a room with Uri Geller, and he actually told her exactly what happened, who was involved, and why. The truth is that it would absolutely shake the world today far more than what it did at the time if you knew the actual truth and who the real players were involved with this. We don't know who they are.
My talents, skills, or powers, call it whatever, I was tested by the CIA, and they just released the beginning of this year, they released all the secret documents of the tests they conducted on me. So I'm now extensively on the CIA's official website. When they saw that I could remote view or I could do activate telepathy, I was instilled into Mexico City for a few missions. One of them was to spy on the Russian embassy in Mexico City. It was quite complicated because they also got me into the Mexican White House where I met the president. And the president at that time was Lopez Portillo, made me a secret agent for Mexico's treasury. So I had very powerful credentials and I got into the embassy. And then my handler, my CIA handler in Mexico City, an agent, CIA agent, asked me a very strange request. Can you bring in information about the assassination of President Kennedy? Now this happened 10 years before. I found that quite strange, but I did exactly what he wanted. So I managed to kind of wriggle myself into the right people. I asked questions, I used my powers, and I came to a stunning conclusion. Right. First of all, I do not believe that the CIA were involved, nor the FBI, nor Lyndon B. Johnson. What I found out was so stunning, and of course I handed my information to the CIA agent, and I wonder whether this will be revealed today.
So look, Yuri, obviously you've ruled out, you're saying you're ruling out the US agencies, so the CIA, the FBI. You said not Lyndon B. Johnson. I think you've said previously as well, not the KGB or the mafia, they weren't involved. This stunning revelation, which we're hoping will come out in these papers, can you give us an idea of what it might be if it's not involving those agencies, Yuri?
Well, look, Ben, you can imagine that everyone from all around the world wants to know this, the answer to this, and I just simply will not talk about it. If this will be revealed, it will be quite stunning. If it's going to be mentioned and redacted, you know, they will have the black ink over my words, that could happen, or it might not even appear in these documents. I was very surprised at the beginning of this year that they released, the CIA released all the documents about my secret testing with them. So we'll just have to wait. If nothing happens, if nothing appears, I will definitely not talk about it.
Well, can you understand then, Yuri, and you know that I'm a big fan of yours because I've known you for many years now. Can you understand why people watching this were going, what a load of nonsense? For heaven's sake, Yuri's just covering his back here because he's saying, if it's in there, I can talk about it. If it's not in there, I'm never going to have to talk about it, which is very convenient. Can you understand that?
Of course I can. But listen, you wanted the interview, you invited me, and this is what I wrote on my Facebook page. I said exactly these things. I had no idea that it'll rumble into something so big. And you know, all the newspapers and TV stations are calling me day in, day out to find out what I discovered. And the reason it is stunning, and the reason I cannot reveal it if they will not, you know, bring it into public domain, is because the ramifications of what I know can be even today kind of shake the political outlook of what is happening today. So that's what I will say, and that's where I stop. I met Jackie because she had a part in editing a book for Doubleday, at that time in New York, a publishing company, which was written about me, called Uri. It was written by a doctor, a scientist called Andrea Puharich, who had links to the CIA. Jackie pressed on me to tell her, when I rolled out and told her that I've been in the embassy there and I met people and I gathered information, she wanted to know the truth. And I told her. So she knew what I discovered.
So just to clear this up, basically you did tell Jackie what you discovered. You don't believe it was a conspiracy, or the conspiracy that was put out there, so none of the agencies that we've talked about. Do you believe that Lee Harvey Oswald was a lone wolf? It would seem from what you're implying, Yuri, that he wasn't acting alone. There was something bigger going on.
I believe that there was something bigger going on. He was the person who pulled the trigger, no doubt. There are so many conspiracy theories out there.
Well, if nobody kills the somebody, then nobody's knowing, then who do you go after?
Well, you know, I mean, how many times has the New World Order come up? You know, the Rockefellers and all of those guys, you know what I mean? They seem to roll up in everything. So you've got conspiracy after conspiracy there.
Yeah, but then you look at the standpoint of what JFK was trying to change and the magnitude that it would have changed things.
Yeah.
Then that's when you look at those things and it's like, well, it goes back to the Rockefellers and the upper hands of the overseers, and it's like, if they're going to lose out on money, it's not going to end well for anyone else.
It's not just money, it's power as well, because you got to remember these people were already beyond rich. You know, there's not even a word for what they are, but so that wasn't going to ever touch them, and pretty much nothing could touch them. You know what I mean? What it is, it's what was he trying to do? Because you know you had the Cuban Missile Crisis and all that other stuff going through. There's rumors that he was going to lift the lid on the UFO conspiracy way back then. Is that a part of it? In fact, there's a TV show. Again, it's not one of our shows unless we mention a TV show. There's a TV show, an old one from the 80s and 90s called Dark Skies, and that's definitely worth watching if you haven't seen it. It gets a bit silly, but it's all about aliens being on Earth and about the conspiracy thing, which ultimately led up to, I think, where the show finished. It ended in November 1963 with the JFK assassination, and it shows sheds a completely different light on what was there. But what other things could have been involved? You know what I mean? We just don't know that.
There's so many factors. Like the National Opinion Research Center conducted a 1,384 in-person interviews between November 26, 1963 and December the 3rd, 1963. And they also found that 62% believed that there were others involved in the assassination compared to the 24% who believed it was a one-person party. And continuing on from that, in 2003, the Gallup poll reported that 75% of Americans did not believe that Oswald had acted alone to start with.
Well, this is the thing. If you go back to, there was an episode that I can't even remember which episode it was now, but I actually played the John Lear test, which was part of one of the Art Bell shows. And one of the things that he actually mentioned was that there wasn't a single shooter on the JFK assassination. There were actually 4 shooters. To have 4 people shooting, then you know that it is a conspiracy. And what do we know? What do we know about that? I know years and years and years ago, I used to know this guy, which his entire passion was the JFK assassination. I actually thought he was a bit wacky with what he was doing, but the amount of information, the amount of names, dates, places that he had, he started talking this shit to me, and it got that scary. It actually started to make sense to me, and I don't even know if he's still around. I haven't seen him in a long time, and makes you wonder who had something to gain from it, who had something to hide and wanted this to happen. You know,
it's a tough one. Like you said, the people at the top, they don't have to have names, but I'm surprised if he was going to his whole what would you call it, peacemaking run that he was going to be going on, from what it seems, you know.
Well, he was a popular president. He was the people's. He was like the people's president, you know. Not your Joe Biden and not your Donald Trump. He was he was a real president, but he was just, I know it sounds horrible, but he was shot down in his prime, you know, and there's no other word for it.
Well, there's also a lot of people saying that he was taken out by his own security apparatus.
Yes, I've heard that. Yeah. And it's just crazy. And then when you go back to some of the things that were happening at the time, you know, I think UFOs were just starting to make a big dent on the US media and things like that. Now you had the big one that we all know, which is another conspiracy theory all on its own, and that's the Roswell accident. Now, or Roswell incident, I should say. You could call it an accident, I guess, but I've heard so many different takes on the Roswell incident that I don't know which one to believe, because a lot of them fit the facts that everybody knows, you know. Now, the basic run-through was, I think it was the 2nd of July, 1947. There was a crash. Everybody, well, a lot of people in Roswell reported hearing the boom and seeing a big flash and stuff like that. It was reported to the authorities, who then took their sweet time. I think it was the property owner, the ranch owner, who actually went out. And at this point, it was just a flash in the sky. It could have been lightning, could have been anything. But he actually found the crash site the next day. And then he went into town and he reported it, that there was actually a downed flying saucer, which then got the military involved and the newspapers involved. And that's when that infamous newspaper thing about a UFO has crashed Roswell, New Mexico. That was the 7th of July.
The Roswell Daily Record?
Yeah, on the 8th of July, it was suddenly a weather balloon. And then that's where this next conspiracy really kicks in as well. You know, you can't tell me that the military can say a UFO has crashed on one day and then, oh, whoops, it was just a weather balloon, you know. And then they talked about how there were 4 child-sized dummies that were up in this weather balloon because they wanted to test the effects of whatever it was. They were radio signals or whatever it was.
No, it was a top secret nuclear test surveillance balloon.
That's Mogul. That's a different thing again. But yeah, a balloon and a flying saucer do not look the same.
No.
You know.
Not that you got a balloon that's, yeah. See, how do you just describe a flying saucer? Is it like the picture behind you, or is it?
Well, that's the classic one. Yeah. I mean, everybody who watches this knows that what I saw as a child, which got me into this whole thing anyway, was a flying saucer that I saw. And I say that because it wasn't a UFO, it wasn't unidentified. I saw it clear as night. It wasn't a dark night, it was a warm summer's night. And as far as warm summer's nights go in England, but the sky was a very light brown, and you could even see flowers and stuff like that on the ground. So seeing this thing, being able to gauge its size based on the tree that it was near and everything, that changed my life forever. And it's been, this year time. Now it's been 48 years since that happened, and I'm still going. It's a long time ago. It's scary. My missus today, she told me, she goes, "You know how old you're going to be this year?" I said, "Yeah, shut up." But yeah, the cover-up about Roswell, that's probably the biggest cover-up in almost world history.
Well, then you got 9/11.
Yeah.
That's got nothing to do with that.
Well, you don't know. You don't know. But again, my big thing, I mean, in this day and age now, there are that many people that do believe that aliens do exist and that they do visit Earth. Why just keep going with this charade? And I know the big thing is because we've been lying to you for over 70 odd years, it's hard to come out with the truth now after we've been lying to you for 70 odd years. And that's basically it. But everybody already knows you've been lying to us. Just come straight. We don't need to, because they always say we can't come out with the truth because of strategic and security issues and what have you behind their back engineering of UFOs and things like that. Well, we don't need to know that. We just want to be told the truth. You know? Disclose the truth. Yes, they do exist. Throw us a couple of photos up of the spaceship so we know what a real alien spaceship looks like. You don't have to go in and show us the details of the anti-gravity propulsion or their weapons systems or their cloaking systems or any of that stuff. You know? Yeah. We don't need no...
But that's the thing though, once they show photos of, oh look, we've got this, then you could nearly count your money there's going to be a war and something's going to be confiscated from somewhere because they're saying, hey, we've got this technology, we're not going to tell you what it is. Russia, China, Japan, whoever the big players are that want to get on in this race as well.
Yeah, well,
they come in and take things as well.
That's it. Well, if you guys go back to our last episode that we did where we talked about remote viewing, one of the big things about that was obviously in the 70s, America put a lot of money into psychic research after they discovered that the Soviets were already doing that. So they put a lot of stuff out there, a lot of different programs, and they realized that there was a lot to do with remote viewing was not a term back then, but it was invented by one of the psychics, and he actually brought the whole system together for it. Now they threw millions over. Well, they reckon over $20 million into this project. The bottom line is, if the Russians are doing it, we want to do it better. So now we're talking about UFOs and disclosing UFOs. I can guarantee you, the USA have got their programs in place and their studies in place. I can guarantee you the Russians have, the French have, the Chinese have, the Indians have their 7-Eleven program.
7-Eleven, not 9/11.
No, that's a different one. No, we're going with 7-Eleven for the moment. But you know what I mean? I mean, when they sent the rocket up to the moon?
Yeah.
There's a poor little guy up there. They're selling his cherry squishies. So there's going to be a lot of aliens on the moon with brain freezes going on.
Look, between the USSR, the Soviets, and the Russians, whatever you want to call them now, politically correct, incorrect, doesn't matter. Between them and the Americans, they have always been at loggerheads with each other for these things.
Yes.
For the sake of even seeing who could dig the hole the furthest in the ground.
Yeah.
It's just like, cool, competition's good, but let's have a competition to see how far we can dig into the ground. Like,
well, until they pop up in each other's backyards eventually. You know what I mean?
How much money went into that could have gone to something else?
Well, the thing is, you guys are both doing that, and then China comes along and goes, hold my bloody beer, because they're going to go in and do it 10 times as good. Well, not as good, but
wearing half the safety gear.
Yeah, they just get in to do it. And that's the thing, this whole race about UFO disclosure, America have a shitload to lose in relation to the trust of the public. China, they'll just blurt it straight out and they will tell you, you know what I mean? And once China releases this or the French release this, it puts pressure on the USA and the Russians to release their information, because I can guarantee you now,
China will only release what the Chinese want to hear.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, you're only a fool if you think that these flying saucers and ships are only buzzing US installations or US airspace. They're all over the world, I mean, we've seen things here, but and I've seen things in the UK. I mean, I'm from the UK. You got the Rendlesham Forest incident. There's lots.
Look, you can nearly go on saying that, America's the most communist person's republic that there is without being a communist person's republic.
Yes.
But anyway, going back to Roswell, and with, I think it was Marcel, was one
Jesse
of the people
Marcel Sr., yeah.
Yes. So apparently his popularized account also added that there was discoveries of aliens' bodies on the plains of San Augustine, approximately 150 miles west of the original debris site.
San Augustine, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
and this is what we were talking about just before we started recording the show. Is one of the rumors that hasn't made it to mainstream is that for a few days people have been noticing these things buzzing around in the sky. Now, what you got to remember as well, just outside of Roswell, New Mexico, is the base for the 509th Bomber Squadron, who were responsible for dropping the bombs on Japan in the end of the Second World War. Mm-hmm. So any prying eyes from up above are going to go straight to have a look and see where the source of these things came from. The planes, from Roswell and stuff like that. So it makes sense that they would be there. Now, there are rumors that these things were taking pot shots at each other. So were they all from the same race of aliens? Who knows? And with the American fighters involved in as well, because for such a highly advanced craft that can navigate stars and come to Earth, why would they just crash unless they were shot down? You know what I mean? So then
race and someone not here.
Yeah. Now
that's probably improbable, but
the first one, there was a first site. This is speaking specifically about the Roswell one. There was a crash site which had a small amount of debris, and the common synopsis is that the flying saucer was moving at such a speed it actually hit the ground, bounced like you would hopscopping,
skip a stone.
Yeah, all across the water. It bounced and then it crashed again, and that's where the actual crash site was, where the flying saucer is, where the not four bodies, there were 4 occupants in the craft. I think there were 2 or 3, 2 that were dead, and there were 2 that were, one that was alive barely but died shortly after, and then I think there was another one that's supposed to have been held in captivity until the 50s, if you believe what's been said.
That's where Stephen Greer came into it. One of the videos I'd seen, and he spoke about them being held in what they called Area 52, which was the Dugway Proving Grounds.
Which is out Utah way.
In Utah.
Yeah.
He also said that the best thing about that place was Area 51 was a huge distraction.
Yeah.
So nobody really heard of it or knew about it until afterwards.
Well, I do believe that, because I think I'm getting all mixed up with the different base names and everything now, but they were moved from the big one, Edwards Air Force Base, I think it was, or something like that, over to Area 51, because at that point in time it was nobody knew about it. As soon as that became known or popularized, whatever you want to say, then the S2 thing was set up, and then once that was blurted out by our friend Bob Lazar,
yes,
they got rid of it. So where did it go from there? There's rumors that it's here in Australia at Pine Gap. There's rumors that it went out Utah way. There are so many secret bases in America, and before we start shooting this show, we were actually trying to find some coordinates and doing some Google mapping on what have you, and you don't find much at all on these places, which is, I suppose, why they call them secret bases. But
but even still, like Area 52, Dugway Proving Ground, it's a well-known place now. People know about it. There's a lot of people that know about it. Can't even find photos of it.
And then when you go to Dugway, that leads into, I mean, we're going to do another complete show on this, but that leads to Skinwalker Ranch and all the controversy around that place. You know, you're not allowed to dig in certain locations. They're hearing these noises which sound like mechanical droning coming from under the ground, vibrations. They're seeing lights.
The nuclear that they hit, the radiation they hit so way up.
Well, yeah, when you watch the show, and unfortunately. Yeah. We still haven't got Brandon back online, Brandon Fugel, who owns Skinwalker Ranch. He did agree to come on the show, but he's gone quiet. So we'll just do the show anyway, because there's no point in hanging out waiting for him. We'll just go with it. But
even better.
The funny thing is, I've been doing some research on, well, actually even the remote viewing and stuff. There's a couple of faces that pop up in that, which while they're not involved in the remote viewing side itself, they were tied in heavily with NIDS and, you know, the Bigelow Aerospace and things like that. And that ties into remote viewing, and they start talking about, especially the Roswell crash, what they're saying is that there were no actual control surfaces anywhere inside. There was just 4 seats basically back to back, so all their heads were in the center, and they believe it was a telepathic or a psychic signal between the occupants as to what flew and navigated the starship, spaceship, flying saucer, whatever you want to call it. And that, I don't know if that's got anything to do with the remote viewing programs. And, you know, you start going into all kinds of secret programs again, which is a whole other show we can do.
Like you said previous, we have tried to look at coordinates. Now, if you actually pop up in Google about the Dugway Proving Grounds, Proving Grounds, you will see a couple buildings scattered across, and they look like they've got false floors that drop down into driveways and things. So what Dr. Stephen Greer was actually saying is that underground, this thing is like 2 to 3 times as big as what Area 51 is.
Oh, easy.
And they reckon easily this is, you know, what it is. And he said they had life forms there, they've had the vehicles there, all sorts.
That sounds very similar to the secret base that is reportedly underneath Denver Airport.
Yes.
Now, anybody who's watching this show who lives out that way, check out Denver Airport and please give us a buzz, because I would like to know. I mean, what is the perfect spot in the middle of a if you're in the middle of a populated area, what is the perfect spot to hide a secret base? It's under a bloody airport, because you've got all of that land where it's just got a few runways and things. You're not allowed in there. There's already security and everything there, so that's already in place, and you don't give it a second thought because it's an airport. But then they reckon there's up to 12 levels underneath the airport, and it spreads out from there.
Who's to say there's not underground tunnels going from Denver to Dugway to Area 51, and you have your own highway. They don't see anything moved. They don't see any bodies going anywhere.
Nope.
Well, it's like with Area 51, the workers that were getting driven in and driven out. They were blindfolded and covered over.
They were flown in. They were flown in and from Las Vegas Airport. A lot of them, anyway.
Flight and buses.
Yeah, there were some that were taken on the buses, but the majority were flown in because they had the runway to land it, and it just had that plane with the big red stripe down the side with no markings, no tail numbers.
Oh, right. There was reports of people being on that bus going, "We had blindfolds on and bags over their heads."
Yeah,
like that's how secret it was.
Well, from what I've heard, from what I've gleaned from my research and everything, is that it's like what we call over here a FIFO job, fly in, fly out, where you land there and you don't come out for 2 or 3 weeks at a pop, and you live on site and you're all completely compartmentalized, so you don't talk with other people. All of your meal breaks are all staggered so that there's never more than 2 or 3 people in a lunchroom at a time. It's full on. There you go. He's looking something up now.
Yeah, no. It's just actually after I was saying about the bus rides, the plane rides to and from. So what year was Area 51 topically spoken about with these bus rides and flights? What year roughly?
In all honesty, I heard about it for the first time in the 80s. I'm not sure when it first. I think it was 88, 89 was when I first heard about it. But you got to remember, I grew up in the UK. And I'd done research, and as much as because I was only a young bloke at that time, but I'd done research into a lot of things, and I couldn't find lots of stuff. But I do remember, obviously, when Bob Lazar came out and did that first interview under a different name, and then ultimately he released his name and stuff. What I can't get over is that if they're all saying that he's talking absolute crap, why now, 40 odd years later, are they still harassing him?
Oh, exactly right.
Because all you would want is for him to come out of the tabloids and out of his 2 minutes of fame, and then the whole thing just gets dropped and whitewashed over. But the fact that things are still happening, and he's not a guy, he hasn't made any money off it. He doesn't go out, he does the odd Joe Rogan or Jeremy Corbell or, those sort of shows with George Knapp and things like that. He will do those, but he doesn't make any money out of it. He's doing his own thing. He wants to be left alone.
That with Greer or?
No, we're talking about Bob Lazar. Yeah. Now, this is where, when we're talking about Steve Greer,
his episodes have gone missing as well. There's a couple that were supposed to be recorded on Spotify and they've disappeared.
There's a lot to do with him, and as you mentioned earlier, I'm surprised he hasn't been taken out already with the stuff that he knows. What he's done the complete opposite to Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar just wants to be left on his own. Now,
Greer's embraced it. Steve
Greer has made himself so public that if something happens to him, everybody's going to know there's a good chance that it wasn't an accident. And that's smart thinking as well.
It is.
Because
but then he's also intertwined himself with the whole CU5 as well.
And this is the thing. He is very heavily engrossed in a lot of different projects because of his credentials and everything. And he knows a lot, and he still has a lot to offer these guys. So, but he's all about getting it out there. He's got his C-SETI projects and all these other things going as well.
Yeah. Sure he started C-SETI.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. That's one of his protocols that he set up, and we've actually done a couple of sessions where we've done those, and we will be doing more, and stay tuned for those.
Going back to me asking about when Area 51 had started up. Now, July 1955 is when CIA, Air Force and Lockheed personnel began arriving at Area 51 as July 1955.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, oh, well, thinking about keeping things quiet, staggered lunch breaks, can't talk to each other and the rest of it.
I don't think it was always like that. Who's
to say that the whole MK Ultra trial and everything else wasn't used with them there as well?
Oh, don't get me started on that one. That's a whole episode. That's a whole 2 episodes all on its own, that, or more.
They started rubbing in 55. MK Ultra went from 53 to 64.
Well, officially.
I'm probably putting
officially.
Here now, but...
Officially. Now, let me just tell you, again, this wasn't mentioned in the remote viewing episode that I did last week, but what happened was when Project Stargate ended in 1995, the question is, does a secret program like that really end? With the amount of success they had with a lot of those missions, I mean, there was a lot that didn't happen, but maybe they were taking it to the next level and it got that advanced that they had to drop it publicly, because obviously there's a black budget involved, and when you've got something that's public like Stargate, you then have to acknowledge how much money you're putting towards it. Whereas if you take it off the books, then that black budget, which is probably 100 times more than what's actually there, who knows what's going on now? Because I know there's people that have been approached by the government that have actually been involved in remote viewing for them after 1995. I'm talking about in the 2015, 16, and 17s. I don't know what that project's called now, but it's still going.
That's the thing. Think about it. What they actually use with MK Ultra, the substances and whatever else on top of it. Look at I could be completely going astray here, but you look at when they find big drug holes.
Yep.
And they report so much is there, but it could be double or half or
more
than what's actually there, and they're pushing it straight back out because they know there's control under these things.
Well, then you go into other things, and a lot of black budgets are funded by drug dealing, and the actual government is involved in a lot more than anybody will ever know, and probably more than we ever really want to know, except if you're like one of us tin foilers where we want to know.
That's the thing. You choose to believe some things and not others. There's obviously, you weigh up a lot of what's going on with these supposed, theories.
Yeah.
But when they become proven true, is it still a theory?
No, because once it's been proven true, it goes from theory to it's a fact.
Exactly. So that people still classify as MK Ultra as a theory.
No,
a lot of it's been redacted, but there's been paperwork released saying yes, we did this.
Yeah, same with Project Stargate. You can actually go and have a look at all of those documents and some of the actual case files from that. One of them, now I don't know how many people, if you go back and watch the episode from last week, and there is I forget the guy's name now, but he was designated remote viewer 001 for the project because they tried to keep all of the people's names and things like that out of it, obviously, without much success, may I add, when Uri Geller's involved and several other people are involved as well. But if you watch last week's episode, there is actually a tape recording. Now, that's not the actual tape of the session, but that is a reenactment of the actual documented script. I don't even know if script's the right word. The
files,
the transcription.
The transcript.
Yeah.
Transcript.
Yeah. And what that one is, that he was given there was an envelope put on the desk in front of him. We're gonna have to go. We've actually gone over time, but the desk had just an envelope, and it had his. I call them a handler because I'm not sure of the exact term that they would use, but this is the person that would make sure that there weren't sneaking peeks and things like that, And he was given a set of coordinates and then just told to go, and he started talking about pyramids and about strange looking people, very tall, thin people wearing strange clothes, and he said it's not quite right, there's something a little bit weird and things like that. Where you get that sudden goosebump moment is at the end when they open the envelope. On the envelope it says planet Mars, right? Time of interest 1 million years BC. So he was actually remote viewing not only the past but Mars, and he was picking up people. And now, since then, we've got the face on Mars, Cydonia, and all that other stuff. And what actual military mapping people are saying are not natural objects. The way they are built, or the positions of them and everything like that, matches a geometric pattern of an artificial settlement.